This story is about an otter whose name is Chloe. Now, Chloe, when after she was born, her mother would float on the ocean on her back, and the baby would nurse while sitting on top of the mother. And the mother, when the baby could begin, Chloe could begin to eat more food, the mother would crack the clams for her. And but there came to be a time when the mother thought that Chloe was big enough to gather her own food and to crack her own clams and mussels and eat that food herself. But the most important thing that the mother had to teach her had to do with how to take care of her fur. Because unlike other mammals in the ocean, they have large quantities of blubber to insulate them from getting cold, but not otters. Otters have special hairs that they have to bathe themselves often because within the little hairs, there's thousands of tiny little air pockets that keep the otter up. Well, the mama taught Chloe how to clean herself and to clean her fur. But after a while, Chloe said to herself, I live in the ocean. I live in the water. Why do I have to clean myself? So she quit doing it. And then all of a sudden, her mother looked over at her one day and saw that she was really shivering. And the mother went right over to her and she knew immediately what the matter was. Chloe, 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 have you been cleaning your fur? Have you been washing yourself? No, mother, I didn't think I had to because I live in the ocean in all this water. Well, Chloe, if you don't wash yourself, clean all your fur, you're going to be so cold. And that's how Chloe the otter learned about the very importance of taking care of her fur every day. And that's the end of my very short story.
Very good. I liked it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
But Doris, it's Linda. You can't. My husband and I, we live in Berkeley, and we like to visit Point Lobos.
Uh-huh.
Is it Pacific Grove? And the otters are in the ocean, and the two-leggeds have a little guy, a a little shed where they display things like pelts, including the pelts, a pelt of an otter. And
Ah,
it's a guy. There's a famous. There's a easy to. There's an impressive metric, and I won't test you, but it has to do with how many. I'll use the word follicle, but it's wrong. Hairs, follicles of are in 1 square inch of the coat of an otter.
oh, I have
Think big, and don't think in the hundreds, but don't think in the
how about 1,000? I guess 1,000.
definitely think in the thousands, but think in the high thousands.
Hmm.
My last hint.
Mm.
Wow.
Mm.
So 1 inch square in an ocean otter. Okay. How about 4,000?
8,000.
Wow, you're really good, you two. You're
Wow.
not there, but you're getting good. It's twice. It's more. Here, my math skills have just been revealed. Um, f- it's 800,000.
Oh goodness.
Ooh.
Oh.
And
Oh
I
my
can't
gosh.
believe that I wasn't able to compute the pluses, minuses, divisions, and additions from Marion's 400,000. But if it was
I,
400,000, it was only half. But what did Marion say? Do you remember?
I said 8,000.
Oh, you said 8,000.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that
Too low.
amazing?
yeah,
And
Yes.
of course, you can pet the coat that's on the display in the Point Lobos. And
I've petted it. I've been there. That is our
oh,
favorite
well,
oh,
I think it would
place.
take a very long time to groom all that hair. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but after Jan, after Doris's story this morning, I learned more about those 800,000 hairs per square inch from what you said about the air pockets,
Yes.
which of
And
course
I
now
guess
I'm,
river otters are different than ocean otters. I don't
oh,
know
indeed.
about their hair composition, but thank you, Linda.
I've
Okay.
only seen one river otter in my whole life. Like I say, I live in town, and it was in the Willamette visiting friends in Corvallis, Oregon.
Ah,
Sleek and dark and not very large and slippery, you can imagine, huh?
Fred
mhm.
and I saw 2 river otters 2 weeks ago on our morning walk.
Wow.
Our morning walk
Mm.
takes us to Contra Loma Reservoir, which is in Antioch. And it's a reservoir. So over the whatever 35 or 40 years that it's been there, it's really established an entire environment of animals. So anyway, but river otter, 2 weeks ago, I spotted them again. Don't see them very often, but they are there.
That was a lucky day.
Yes.
Yes.
So we have Tom and Sandy and Linda and Miriam. Miriam, who would like to tell us a wonderful tale next?
Well, I'll go, but I am not, but I am going to read a poem. I'm going to poetry, whatever, in Brentwood. I forget what it's called. Anyways, it's once a month is poetry run by my friend. So she's going on Zoom for the very first time tonight, and she's anxious about it.
You can be a great ally.
Well, I usually tell 5-minute stories there. Their limit is 5 minutes, but they read their own poems. She accepts that I have stories, and they, of course, enjoy it. I'm going to read this without naming it to give you a challenge because it's a familiar poem to many. So when I get to the end, tell me what the name of it is and who
Before,
wrote it.
excuse me, Marion, excuse me, it's Linda. Can you make me co-host in case Martha Shogren joins us from Oakland?
Good. Yes. Because you're right. I won't be paying attention to that.
Right. Mhm.
There you are.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Whose woods are these? I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping there to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there's some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of the easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep.
Beautiful.
Who is
Mhm.
that?
Or
Robert Frost stopping by woods in a snowy evening.
Yes, ma'am. That's fun.
Do you know that you can sing that to the tune of Hernando's Hideaway?
I was just about to
Woods
mention that.
these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. Bum, bum.
Oh, fabulous.
Oh,
Very good.
I learned about matching it to that tune where someone also pointed out that every poem by Emily Dickinson could be sung to the tune of the Yellow Rose of Texas.
Good to know.
Yeah.
That must mean she has a certain lilt to
Yeah.
all of her poems.
James, it's Linda. Do you know if is Emily Dickinson the poet who wrote a famous poem, Tell It Slant? I cannot imagine.
I think it
The-
is. I remember that reference.
What's the Texas song again? The Yellow Rose of Texas?
The yellow rose.
I cannot wait to plan. This is such an exciting morning. I'm learning so many things. Wow. I could have get. I got stuck on Sandberg because I sometimes confuse him with. But and at first I thought the mending wall. But I was there. But what preposition did Frost use for to modify the modifier snowy to the word evening? Only my husband would just faint at that question.
Stopping by woods on a
On
snowy
this.
evening.
Because I thought you'd said, okay, maybe that's what you'd said. And I'm not sure either, but thank you.
Thank you for that poem. Nice, Marion.
Mhm.
Thank you. So,
I have another poem now or later if you wish.
how about now? Good.
Okay. This is, I'll tell you, it's Robert Frost and it's called After Apple Picking. My two long pointed ladders sticking through a tree toward heaven still. And there's the barrel that I didn't fill beside it. And there may be 2 or 3 apples I didn't pick upon some bough. But I am done with apple picking now. Essence of winter sleep is on the night. The scent of apples, I'm drowsing off. I cannot rub the strangeness from my sight. I got from looking through the pane of glass I skimmed this morning from the drinking trough and held against the world of hoary grass. It melted and I let it fall and break. But I was well upon my way to sleep before it fell. And I could tell, sorry. And I could tell what form my dreaming is about to take. Magnified apples appear and disappear, stem end and blossom end, and every flake, every fleck of russet showing clear. My instep arch not only keeps the ache, it keeps the pressure of a ladder round. I feel the ladder sway as the boughs bend. And I keep hearing from the cellar bin the rumbling sound of load on load of apples coming in. For I've had too much of apple picking. I am overtired. And the great harvest I myself desired. There were 10,000 fruit to touch, cherished in hand, lifted down and not let fall, for all that struck the earth. No matter if not bruised or spiked with stubble, went surely to the apple cider heap, as of no worth. One can see what will trouble this sleep of mine, whatever sleep it is. Were he not gone, the woodchuck would say, whether it's like his long sleep as I desire its coming on, or just some human sleep. Written in 1914.
Very nice.
So I'm going to read those tonight. You gave me a practice to read.
Sounds good.
We have a story about sleeping.
Oh, good. That must be the segue.
Well, it's a story from India. Set back a while in rural India, a young man who'd studied here and there and then took a job up the river from his hometown. And while he was there, he met a young woman and was married and so on. And they had a little boy. And he lived there with her, and it was far enough. It was a long walk back down the river trail to his hometown. And he rarely went, particularly once he had work and a child and everything to keep him busy. But one day he said to his wife, he says, I would like to walk down the river to my hometown. And I think our son is old enough that he could walk with me.
Oh, I think he is. That would be a lovely trip.
And so the next day they set out in the morning after breakfast and they walked and the father was pointing out things along the trail, footprints of animals, bird feathers, plants, and so on.
And the child was just loving every minute of the walk.
And it took them a while to get to his home village, and everyone there was glad to meet him.
And there were aunts and cousins that he'd never met before, and cousins to play with, and they had a lovely time, and everybody brought food, and they had a big meal in the middle of the day, and then they started back.
And walking back up the river path along the bank of the river, Father realized the sun setting. He hadn't allowed enough time for walking home before sunset, and there was no moon. It was going to be a dark night. He said to his son, it'll be a bit awkward walking home in the dark. Oh, we can sleep here on the riverbank. There's a nice grassy place. We'll lie down here, sleep through the night, and get up when the sun comes up and walk home.
Okay, but I get to sleep in the middle.
You can't sleep in the middle. There isn't any middle.
But I always sleep in the middle.
I know at home you sleep in the middle because your mother and I make a space for you and you sleep in the middle. But there's just me here with only one person to sleep with. There is no middle. You can't sleep in the middle.
But how can I sleep if I can't sleep in the middle?
But there's no middle.
Ah!
Oh dear. Wait a minute. I have an idea. How about you sleep on the middle?
On.
Yes. I will lie down with my feet pointed down the hill toward the river on the river bank, and you can lie on me with your bottom right here on my tummy and your head right here under my chin, and you will be on my middle.
Okay.
And so they did that. The father lay down carefully, feet down, hands to the side. The boy got on his middle, on his back, head under the chin.
And his father's hands reached up around him like a seatbelt.
And soon they were both asleep, and the father snored and snored.
And while they were sleeping, a tiger came to investigate.
Remember, no moon, dark night. And he hears the sound of the snoring. What is this creature?
He sniffs around, sniffs closer and closer, and it tickles the man, the father.
And the father choo! And he sneezes.
Which woke up the little boy who went, wah! And sat up.
And then lay down and went back to sleep, and so did the father. The tiger was scared off. He ran to warn all the other animals.
There's this creature down by the river. It's got 8 legs and 2 heads, and it goes, achoo, wah! Stay away.
And the father and the boy slept peacefully through the night and woke up and went home as though nothing had happened.
Thank you.
It's called I Want
That
to Sleep
was-
in the Middle.
I went to
That
This
was
is
really
great.
good.
You know, such great teamwork telling that.
Yeah, that was really
That's-
good.
Tandem telling is our specialty.
Oh, good.
Is the
I've
title?
never heard
it's
anyone
Linda.
do that before. Oh, go ahead, Linda.
It's Linda. Is the title "I Want the Middle"?
I want to sleep in the middle.
Where did you find "I Want to Sleep in the Middle"?
Online, probably, in one of the Storytel networking sharings. It might have been in somebody's list of stories. Forgotten whether.
Is it okay if I tell that to a neighbor? Our kitchen wall we share with a family,
course.
Of course. It's,
Stories are meant to be shared.
yeah.
a 3-year-old and now a 3-month-old.
Uh-huh.
And he's very good at occupying himself, this 3-year-old. But that story would probably be very, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
It's about a 3 or 4-year-old kid.
In COVID, pre-COVID, families in my family started having fewer parties because the family started growing larger and COVID just anyway. Your story prompts me to invent an occasion outside in the courtyard that 8 units all share. That's a good one. James, Marion, do you know if, oh dear, was I watching?
No, nobody came in. You're fine, Linda. Nobody came in.
I know, but I'm only lucky. I'm only fine because I was lucky, or we're unlucky to not get Martha Sjogren, formerly of Sebastopol, now Oakland. But I am lucky that I. So, quick tech check, Marion. Ought I have had my to be alerted? Zoom might have alerted me in some pop-uppy way, but I think to make it even more thorough, I could have had my participants of us today up, and that I think would have been more. And now I have it up.
Yes, you need the participants to be up.
Yeah.
And I've had them up the whole time and nobody else has arrived.
Oh, bless your heart.
Well, I'm eager to hear another story. Who would like to tell? James,
Well,
Linda?
I brought one. I found a
Good.
book that I'd mislaid a while, and I had a chance to read it. That it was a book of several dozen fairy tales by Frank Stockton, who is mainly known these days as the author of the short story The Lady and the Tiger. And I can't think of much else, but he had been editor of St. Nicholas magazine throughout much of the later 19th century, and wrote a number of stories in fairy tale style. And I found a couple of Christmas ones, and this is a shorter one that I'll try to tell. It's just, but in a village, the title of this one is The Sprig of Holly, and it's by Frank Stockton. Okay. In a village, one of the ways Christmas was celebrated, by every family, was to make a big display of greenery, within in the house and on the door, though. And there's one family that the father had gathered a lot of great evergreen branches and organized all that over the hearth of the fire. But it was also the custom in this village that the decorations would include holly. And, they had no holly in what the father gathered from their land. And so the two children, Colin and Dora, went out on the errand to look for holly. Unfortunately, this year, not much holly had grown, and everywhere they looked, they couldn't find any holly still growing that hadn't already been, been picked for others to make decoration. And the older, Colin, the older one, said to himself, "I can't let this happen again. In future years, I'm going to go out early and get and gather the holly, while it's still there and not have any risk of missing out." But the two of them kept looking, deeper into the woods, looking for where some holly might be growing. But still they saw no holly until Colin saw what looked like a wonderful branch of holly with, large berries. And, and he headed over towards it, and he found that no, it wasn't a holly bush among other bushes. It was a small dwarf that was holding and waving this branch of holly. this sprig of holly, and saying, and the dwarf turned up to him and said, "Yes, have you ever seen such a wonderful branch of holly? Look at its shiny leaves. Look at its magnificent berries. Wouldn't you like to have this? It's this branch of holly, this holly can be yours." And says, "Well, thank you very much. How can I have this? You just need to pay me." "Well, what do I need to pay you?" "Oh, a year of your life." And Collins author said, "No, what do you mean by that, a year of my life?" "Well, that you'll be at my beck and call and do whatever I tell you to do for a full year, and and that's the price for the hall." He says, "No, that is far too much." "Okay," said the dwarf. "How about half a year? I own you half a year." "No, that's way too much." "Okay, how about a month? You can have it just for a mere month." "No, no, that's, I don't, that's going to be too hard on me, too much of a price to pay for that." "Well, how about a week? What could happen in a week?" "No, no, not a week." And then the dwarf said, "How about just one day?" And Colin thought a little and said, "No, in a day I could be made to do something like go around robbing people for a day, and that would be terrible." And so he said, "No, not a day even." "Well, how about an hour?" And he said, "No, not an hour either, because most of the terrible things that could happen there could be there." He says, "Okay, how about 1 minute?" And Colin thought, well, what could happen in a minute? No, he could give me a gun and tell me to shoot it. So a minute's no good. And said, "Okay, how about I own you for a second?" And Colin thought, no, he could tell me in a second to hit my little sister, and I wouldn't do that. So can't put that to risk. So I'll do it. And then the dwarf said to him, "How about in exchange for the sprig of holly, you give me nothing?" And he said, "Nothing? Well, I'll agree to that." And so, and fine, the holly is yours, as he hands that to Colin. And the, you know, and he says, "Oh," and then the dwarf just seemed very happy for having given it. He was sort of dancing back, and there were two other little dwarves nearby. They were trying not to get the attention of the bigger dwarf, but they were holding a little doll and gesturing it towards the little sister Dora, saying, "Have you ever seen such a wonderful little doll? It has all these joints and it just moves and it can almost dance. What do you like that? Oh, just a year of your life, just a year of your life." And she was going, "No." But meanwhile, Colin was talking with the bigger dwarf, who said, "Why, why are you seeming so happy about giving this branch of holly for nothing?" He said, "Well, when I gave this branch of holly to another boy last year." Wait, you've already given it to someone, and why do you have it back?" "Well, I I offered to give it to him last year, and he wouldn't agree to a year, but he agreed to half a year in my service. And so he got, to do whatever I said. So I gave him the holly. And of course, the first thing I told him once he would do whatever I told him to was, give me back the holly. So I've had this holly ever since, waiting for another, to be ready to tempt another boy to work for me, because this is something that we dwarves do. We, it's our tradition to try to employ young children to do our work for us. But this last year, this boy, he was in my service for 6 months, And I was just all the time having to work very hard at thinking of things for him to do for me. And, I just reach a point of telling him things, go out and play. I order you to go out and play. And he'd come back 3 hours later. I've played all the games. I can't tell me something else to do. And it was just so much work and so aggravating that I'm glad I have nothing from you.
Ah,
And so the little sister, the little sister's attention was gotten by the two littler dwarves who were saying, hey, not a year, half a year, maybe a month, how about a week, or and then they got interrupted and were going, they left the bigger dwarf and were walking back with the holly, to take home, the beautiful holly to take home. And the two little dwarves were saying to the little sister, okay, if not a week, how about a day, an hour, oh, a minute, oh, how about 1 second, how about nothing? And she said, oh, I'll take the doll for nothing. I said, here is the doll. And they went away so happy then. And the two children went home and showed their father the holly they mounted up with the other evergreens, and they all marveled at how well the doll moved there. And the father, and Colin told his father the whole story of what had happened. And he said that, you were, I'm very proud of you for just sticking up for yourself and not giving yourself away.
aw.
So everyone seems to have.
That was,
Yes, thank you. That was charming.
Yeah.
it really was. And that was a long story. You did very well.
Well, thank you. But it just seems
Wow.
to have some different. It just seems to have some different elements of this
Yeah.
sort of thing, and a couple of
Mhm.
other stories just, a couple of the other stories just seem to have unusually agreeable outcomes.
Mhm.
Which raises my hope that in the story, The Lady and the Tiger, it was the lady and not the tiger.
My, James. How do I spell Frank Talkin?
Oh, it's Stockton, like the river or the city.
Stockton.
Stokton.
Stockton, where you get $200.
What?
Stockton?
Stockton.
What city?
The city of Stockton.
Like Stockton, California out here on
Stockton.
Highway 4.
Stockton.
Okay, we are. Yeah, that's right. You were from elsewhere.
Hold the book up.
Let me see if I can.
It's
there it
there,
is.
it does.
Is it backwards or forwards?
There, Linda.
Perfect.
Edited by Jack Zipes. Is he a character in
I don't know. I
David
think.
Copperfield?
Sykes, I think it is. Bill
Uh,
Sykes.
Yeah,
from,
Jack Zipes is a
from-
major
from
collector,
Albert
editor, writes commentaries on the meaning and value of stories and the history of tales. He's done some other interesting collections of, I think he may be the one that did the collection of Tales for Radical Children, which was all, about the children's literature that was written from leftist political perspective from the 19th century to more recently, and done other things, and a whole collection of Grimm that he edited, and a lot of other things.
He also edited this book, um, The Golden Age of Folk and Fairy Tales. This is a real Bible of good stories here. Golden Age of Folk and Fairy Tales. Yeah, is that you see it correctly?
Yes,
Yes.
It's backwards when I look at it, by Jack. Yeah. So he categorizes stories. Anyway, this is very useful, this book. Right.
Well, Marion, Doris, if I may, um, I would like to follow when James is done. I would like to follow. Um,
Perfect. I think
wow, when people are excuse me, but there we go. When people are spotlighted, if I didn't have their little inset, I couldn't confirm their names. I'm glad, James, I got your name, James, correct. Because on your spotlight, you are nameless, but
Oh,
on your what I call thumbnail, you are not.
aha, I
there
see.
you are.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So, isn't this been a nice morning? So, Linda,
Mhm.
So what I want to do is to tell the story I came to tell, but after being here today, I am seeing how much it has to do, the story I want to tell, with almost practically everything that we've been talking about this morning. Not in an obvious way. You might wonder about that. But James's, as you all probably agree with me, is a cornucopia of 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 the absence of this or the absence of that. And now, this story that I want to tell you now, which Marion has heard part of, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to tell the whole story. Similarly to James's, is on what I will call the theme of absence, not in as the heart grows fonder, but so mostly as in withholding. But that will confuse you even more. So let me begin and stop confusing you.
Could you
It's a
back up
story.
a little bit so we can see your full chin?
Oh,
Just a bit.
this is a big monitor. My husband and I have a
Yeah.
big monitor. How
There,
is
that's
this?
That's
good.
good.
Okay, good. Um, Hamdami. It's named Hamdami after the main character. Hamdami was a poor man. Hamdami had very little. Hamdami had almost nothing. Maybe a roof over his head of one sort or another, but he would go around the town and he would ask people for things, mostly for food. And people would give him food. After a while, though, Hamdami, he was going around the town and he was taking things that were not offered. And the people, of course, noticed and they stopped giving him things, hoping that he would go away. And Hamdami ended up to visiting the village dump. That became where Hamdami went. And around the village dump, Hamdami would scratch and scrape and find himself morsels of this and that, maybe as small as millet, and that's what he would eat. And one day, while he was scratching and scraping about, Hamdami came upon a dime. And he said, "Oh my gosh." And Hamdami came upon a dime, which he quickly wrapped up inside the corner of the cloth he was wearing and tied a knot around it and went on looking for food. And not finding any, he thought, "Oh my, well, at least I have a dime. I think I'm going to go home now. I will take a nap." The next day, the village dump found Hamdami coming to visit it again, doing scratching and scraping. And Hamdami was mid scratching and scraping, looking up, and he sees a man from the country coming towards the village dump or going by it. And he called out. He called out and he said, "Hi there. What have you got in that basket of twigs on your back?" And "May I come see?" And nearby there were two or three well to do gentleman who discouraged the man from the country from even showing Hamadi what was in the basket of twigs. But the man from the country said, "Well, why not? I come to market often, and I always put my things out for where I will show him." And they discouraged him from doing so because he said, the well-to-do people said, "You don't realize this man has nothing, and he would certainly not be able to buy anything, even if you wanted to give it to sell it." And Hamdami by this time is closer to the man from the country who is still agreeing, and he comes close to Hamdami and says, "It is a basket filled with gazelles." Gazelles. May I have a look? And the merchant looked at Hamdami, and Hamdami looked at the merchant, watched the merchant pull out a small gazelle, and Hamdami said, "May I may I have that gazelle for one dime?" And the man from the country looked at Hamdami, and he extended the young gazelle, and Hamdami extended the dime, and that was that. Hamdami and the gazelle, they went back. They slept together. The next day, Hamdami rose and went to the village dump and started scratching and scraping again. And this went on for 4 or 5 days, and by the sixth day, it was night. They were sleeping. And in the middle of the darkness, Hamdami heard a voice that said, "Master, master." And Hamdami awakes, startled. Who could that be? Who is? Yes, I am here. Who speaks? It is your gazelle. It is Katipa. What? Gazelles? Who heard of gazelles ever talking before? Huh. That is nothing. There is much more than that. Much more wonderful even than that. But I want you to listen to what I have to say. Oh, says Hamdami. I will listen. I will listen. What is it? Kajipa said, "You know, you are my master, and I am not able to leave you. But this scratching and scraping about might be well for you, but it is not well for me. There will be no Kajipa if I don't get more food. What can I do? Let me go out and forage for myself and for the things that I want in bigger quantities. And as your servant, I will come back every night." Well, I suppose I don't have much choice. Go on then. And for the first several days, that's exactly what the gazelle was doing, finding all kinds of things to eat. Until about the fifth or sixth day, the gazelle, and of course the gazelle went home every night to Kajipa, to Hamdami. But one day, Kajipa the gazelle is scratching and scraping underneath one particular tree. There's lots of grasses and plants, and is seeing the most immense brightness of a diamond in the dirt under the grasses. Oh, Kajipa recognizes what this immenseness is. This is this this is enough. This is enough for a kingdom. I cannot give it to my master. He will be killed. And Kajipa wraps the diamond in green leaves and determines to take it to someone who is able to handle it and make good use of it. Eventually finds the Sultan in the nearest, biggest town. And on his way, the people who see him, by the time he's where there are people, are startled at watching this gazelle walking by, carrying green leaves in his mouth. But onwards he goes and arrives at the gate of the Sultan and walks through and sees the Sultan at the door, out, looking about. Kajipa approaches the Sultan and says hello and puts the green leaf down and says, hello, I don't know what you might think of what I'm about to ask you, but I have to propose something that I don't know how you will react. I propose something along the lines of a family alliance. And with that, Kajipa picked up the package of green leaves and placed it in the lap of the Sultan, seated on his doorstep. And the Sultan unwrapped the green leaves and sees this immense bright diamond. Even before that, the Sultan said, I am thinking about a family alliance. This is good timing. But now that I see what you have in this leaf, I offer you my daughter most willingly. Kajipa, he he said, well, I knew about the daughter, and that is why I am here. But I want to tell you that my master would be just as ready to say yes. And the Sultan said, there is nothing more needed. Your master has given you more than enough for such a family alliance. And with that, Kajipa took his leave and went back to Hamadi, who was crying, thinking that he'd lost his gazelle. And Kajipa said, oh, I have good news. Stop the crying. Wait till you hear what I have to say. And Kajipa explains that they are going to go into the city now. And on their way through to the city, they pass a stream. And Kajipa has Hamadi take off his clothes and wash in the stream. It's important before we go to the city. It's important before we go to the Sultan. Hamadi has washed in the stream. They make their way from there through the forest. And in the forest that's thick, on the way to this, on the way from the stream to the city, Kajipa has Hamadi lie down, which Hamadi does. And Kajipa takes a stick and beats Hamadi and tells Hamadi he must stay there. And Kajipa quickly, swiftly runs to the Sultan's, where they're expecting him to arrive with his Hamadi, whom the Sultan has been told is really a Sultan himself, Sultan Darara. But it's only the gazelle, Kajipa. And there were courtesans and others about, wondering where is the Sultan Dahare. How are you? Says the Sultan to Kajipa. Don't ask. It is bad. I can hardly talk. But on our way through the part of the forest that was thick, there were men who beat us, and my master is unable to be here now. Oh. The Sultan immediately sends for a basket of clothes, a walking cane, a horse, which which is brought immediately. And out of the basket, the Sultan pulls fine cloth from India, hands it to, and says, how will you get this? How will you get this? And Kajipa was able to put all of this onto the horse, tie himself to the horse, and make his way back, saying to the Sultan that he would be able to return within a matter of days. When he arrives where he has left Hamadi, Hamadi is told to get dressed and make their way. Once dressed, and Hamadi and Kajipa the gazelle are going back to the city, Kajipa makes a point to Hamadi saying, look at you. No one would know that you were a beggar, scraping and scrapping at the dust heap in the town. You look for every inch a sultan. By this time, they've practically arrived at the sultan's palace. And once they do, the sultan is pleased to present his daughter. And of course, Hamadi is pleased to receive her. And they go back. But Kajipa does not. Kajipa goes into the forest while Hamadi is only too happy to be left with his new wife and this new life, marble seats to sit on, things to eat, comfort to sleep. But in the forest, Kajipa wanders, and after a few days, Kajipa goes to the house of an old woman who lived there. And he says to the old woman, I want you to go and give my master a message that I am ill, that I don't feel well, that I need for him to bring me some food. And the old woman does this. And when she tells Hamadi, and his wife hears how Hamadi responds, she is surprised, the wife. Hamadi said, Well, this gruel will be enough, surely. The old woman takes her leave and offers the gruel to Kajipa in the forest. And Kajipa can hardly eat the gruel. And he says to the woman, I want you to go back to Hamadi and tell Hamadi that the gruel isn't helping me. And the old woman returns to Hamadi, and this time, with an even meaner sound in his voice, thinks, what do I owe? I bought this gazelle for 1 dime. What do I owe? And the wife, she hears this, and she says, what is this, husband, how you speak? And he says to his wife, what is this, how you speak to me? And she says, well, we should be able to advise and consent and work it out. And Hamadi hears none of this. And he gives a second bowl of gruel, no different than the first. And the woman takes it back. In the interim, the wife has somehow managed to pull together a pillow for comfort that she also gives after watching where the woman goes into the forest and whatever else the wife could do. But it doesn't help. And after a few days, when the woman checks in on Kajipa, she sees that Kajipa has not only gotten worse, but has died from sorrow. And the wife finds out about this. And the Sultan, father of the wife, finds out about this.
Excuse me, Linda, re-plug in your microphone.
Testing, testing.
That's it. You got it. You're back on. And finish it up.
We're hearing you, but with a low buzz.
Is the buzz gone now?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
When the Sultan finds out that not only has Kajipa died, but that Hamadi has thrown Kajipa into the well, the Sultan comes with all of his assistants, and they bring Kajipa up and out and take him back to where they bury him. And the story ends with two options. They are options that are much to ponder. And as you might be able to tell, I ponder them still. And I think I have them worked out. They're most revealing, but I am going to share them with you now, and that is how we shall end. If this story is good, its goodness belongs to all. If it is bad, the badness belongs to him who told it.
Oh, no.
Well, we won't have to discuss it, but I think that there's much to think about with this story, and I can't get rid of it. And as much as it's challenging me, I am able to weave it into the month of November, the things we celebrate in November, and have insight that I had not had before.
What a story.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
Wow, indeed. Yeah. Wow.
I am curious. I've probably heard that story at one of the festivals, and maybe others have. I've seen two versions.
I've never heard that story.
Me either.
Yeah. Wow.
It it is from the continent of Africa, off the continent, in Zanzibar, Tanzania, and it comes from a book I found at Powell's in Portland called African Folk Tales.
Interesting and unusual.
Thank you for staying with me. It needs a. I'm very glad for another opportunity. I hope it wasn't at too much expense.
No, you did it.
No, no, not at all.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, what a very nice morning.
Hmm.
Told stories now. We've had a very good meeting. And so, Marion, thank you for setting us up.
You're welcome.
Tom and Sandy for your very good tandem telling. James for your story. And Linda for pricking our minds about that story. So thank you. I look forward to next month. And now I'm working on a story that I can tell at Christmas Eve. And I've decided to tell the story of Bridget's Cloak, famous saint in Ireland. We'll see. I'm in the middle of a 15-page story, so we'll see how
Oh.
it goes. Yeah.
Mhm.
Whatever.
Doris, if I may, it's
Yeah.
Linda. Oh,
Linda, what
does
did
Janet want? I think Janet wanted to say something. I'm sorry.
No, no, I didn't.
But on a lighter note, the sadness in the interesting to me story that I told is the is the extreme opposite of some people. How do they put this? Whenever two people, let's say their spouses, um, greet each other, how many times a day maybe, that each time it's not inappropriate to be filled with joy and gratitude and excitement and communicated love. I'm using more words than the simple thing. And I think the contrast with that to Kachipa's predicament, the gazelle, makes what before that I read the story in what the abundant exclaiming seemed like almost ridiculous exaggeration. It renders it into the appropriate opposite. And I love balancing them. Like, what's the name we have for the blind justice? Does blind justice have a name?
I don't know.
It's it. Who is that holds the scales?
I think just simply justice.
I think it's something justice. But anyway, I didn't even have scale plates of the scales to put those two concepts on. Ridiculous, overdue. But then as soon as I got such a abundance of underdue, I was able to get scales to what anyway, it's helping me.
Oh, good. Good.
And the only upbeat part of that is thinking about the people who overdo, and it's not an overdue at all. It's doing and it's loving.
Very kind.
So thank you very much, Doris, Marion, and all of and James and the Farleys and Janet.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
So
The second Thursdays.
second Thursdays, 10 to 12, thanks to Marion setting us up. And I will click leave now. And again, express appreciation that we we got together. All right. Thank you.
I'll announce our
Thank you all.
celebrations. Because there's
Bye.
2 of us who are, okay, there's 2 of us who are leading celebrations not done yet. So the next one coming up is the Delta Word Weavers. That would be my swap group. I'm joining with South Coast Storytellers on Thursday, November 19th at 7:30 p.m.
Aha, okay.
For this and all the other celebrations, of which there are 4 more for SAC, go to the Storytelling Association of California website. Right on there is a full menu, and pick SAC celebrations. It'll give you exactly how to register.
Okay.
So that's mine on Thursday. And then on the 2 days later, Sandy at 3:30 in the afternoon is Sacramento, joining with a Southern California swap. And then in the evening is Sandy and Tom Farley's celebration. Tell us about that for 7 o'clock, November 21st.
Okay.
Saturday.
Yes. Sandy, tell us about that. Turn on your mic.
I think they may have signed off.
No.
Sandy's there talking wordlessly.
Oh, there they are.
Yeah.
We have a great lineup. Joyce Swift, Lori Pines, Becky and JC, and us, and then Anushka and Trisha Shetty, our youth tellers, and then our guest teller, Michael McCarty, who gets the big chunk of time. Everybody else is telling something short.
Interesting. Okay.
So for those who
And our theme is what the world needs now.
Michael is one of those big guys with this big, powerful voice, and he just takes over the whole room. He'll take it off, and you'll thoroughly enjoy him if you have never heard Michael McCarty. And then the very next day is the other SAC storytellers, which is Mother Lode and Community Storytellers of Southern California. That'll be the very next day on the 22nd at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So to catch all these, just go to Storytelling Association of California website. And right on the front page, it says SAC Celebrations. Click that and you'll be in. Okay, hope to see some people at Celebration.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Should be
you.
wonderful. Okay.
All right, have a good day.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye now. Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
Janet. Marion, that was good. Was
Okay,
it easy getting on?
just a minute, I'm stopping the recording. I'm busy working here. Just a minute. Yeah, I got on okay. It still says recording.
The red dot is gone. Oh, you're right. It does still say recording.
So I'm going to work, and yeah, we're being recorded at the same time. Here we go.